Creativity is not a luxury, an idle amusement for the few, nor a trivial byproduct of culture. It is a fundamental aspect of the human psyche, an essential force that shapes identity, meaning, and the process of becoming. Yet, despite its primacy, it is among the most repressed aspects of the self. Modern society conditions individuals to suppress their creative instincts, substituting genuine expression for conformity, external validation, and efficiency. Those who fail to recognize this repression may not understand the true source of their dissatisfaction, but it manifests in ways both insidious and overt. An underlying sense of stagnation, a quiet despair, or a life lived as a hollow imitation of what it could have been. Carl Jung saw creativity as a manifestation of the unconscious, a force that wells up from the depths of the psyche, demanding recognition. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves, he wrote. But of course, in a world that normally prioritizes productivity over play and efficiency over exploration, this fundamental instinct is silenced before it can ever find its true expression. Many assume creativity is the domain of the artist, the musician, or the writer, but it is something far more universal. It is the ability to shape, to imagine, to bring forth something that did not exist before. The scientist who breaks conventional thought, the entrepreneur who challenges an industry, the individual who reinvents themselves after years of stagnation, all are manifestations of the same force. And when this force is denied, when the individual resigns themselves to a prescribed path, they cut themselves off from a crucial aspect of their own becoming. Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self, cannot occur without creativity. To individuate is to break free from collective norms and forge an authentic existence, but this demands confrontation with the shadow, the repressed, and the parts of oneself deemed unacceptable. Creativity and repression exist in direct opposition. To create is to allow what has been buried to rise, to shape it into something meaningful rather than allow it to fester. Those who suppress their creativity often do so because they fear what it might reveal. To create without constraint is to expose one's rawest, most unfiltered self. It is far easier to conform, to create in ways that are socially acceptable, to follow trends rather than express something personal. The artist who tailors their work to marketability rather than truth. The thinker who dulls their ideas to gain approval. Both are committing a form of self-betrayal. Friedrich Nietzsche saw creation as the ultimate act of self-overcoming. He wrote of the child in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the final stage of spiritual evolution, which represents a being who creates new values rather than adhering to inherited ones. True creation in this sense is a rebellion. It is the refusal to accept what has been imposed, the forging of one's own meaning in the face of nihilism. Those who do not create are left with only what has been given to them, a framework they did not choose but merely inhabit. Creativity is the destruction of this framework, the reconstruction of the world in one's own image. Still, society does not foster this kind of independence. It conditions individuals to remain within the limits of what is acceptable. Those who attempt to break free face resistance, ridicule, or outright suppression. The more rigid a society becomes, the more it fears true creative expression, and the more those within it feel an unnameable sense of imprisonment. There is an undeniable connection between repression and psychological suffering. Jungian psychology suggests that what is repressed does not simply disappear, it festers in the unconscious, influencing behavior in indirect ways. The individual who suppresses their creative instincts often experiences an inexplicable dissatisfaction with life. They feel an internal emptiness, yet they cannot identify its source. Some seek to fill this void through distraction, consumption, addiction, or rigid adherence to external structures, but none of these resolve the underlying issue. The energy that could have been channeled into creation turns inward, becoming destructive rather than generative. This is why those who deny their own creative impulses often become resentful of those who embrace theirs. The failed artist may become the harshest critic of others, the individual who never allowed themselves to pursue their passions may scoff at those who do. The repression of creativity does not only harm the individual, it breeds cynicism, hostility, and a culture that discourages originality. In contemporary society, this dynamic has taken on new forms. The digital age has created unprecedented opportunities for self-expression, yet it has also intensified the need for validation. Social media in particular has transformed creativity from an intrinsic act into a performance. The individual no longer creates for themselves, but for an audience, for engagement metrics, for the approval of the faceless masses. This distorts the process entirely. Creativity, which should be an expression of the innermost self, becomes a calculated effort to conform to what is trending, what is algorithmically rewarded. I have felt this firsthand in the creation of thumbnails for my YouTube videos. Instead of allowing creative instinct to dictate the process, the first thought is always, what will make people click? The act of creation is overshadowed by the need for results, and in this way, creativity is slowly suffocated. This is not to say that external considerations have no place, only that when they become the primary concern, true creativity is lost. The tragedy is that many individuals never even recognize this as a form of repression. They believe they are being creative, yet every decision is guided by external expectations rather than internal necessity. This extends beyond social media. The aspiring writer who molds their work to fit publishing trends, the musician who dilutes their sound for marketability, the thinker who tempers their ideas to avoid controversy, all are engaged in the same act of self-limitation. Creativity thrives in authenticity, and authenticity cannot exist where external approval is the primary goal. Jung noted that creativity is also a path toward healing. He used artistic expression as a means for his patients to access their unconscious and give form to repressed emotions. One of his patients, for example, found that painting provided a gateway into the depths of her psyche, allowing her to confront and integrate unresolved aspects of herself. This highlights the therapeutic potential of creativity, not as a career, but as a practice of self-exploration. Writing, painting, carpentry, or any form of making can serve as a direct connection to one's inner world, a way to give structure to the chaos within. When creativity is treated as a means of personal expression rather than a commodity, it can become a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind. In addition, engaging in creativity as a hobby, without the pressure of turning it into a profession, allows for a purer form of expression. It becomes an intimate dialogue with the self, a return to the uninhibited imagination of childhood. Many adults abandon creativity because they no longer see it as useful, but this is a false premise. Creativity does not need to be productive. Its value lies in the act itself, in the sense of fulfillment and freedom it provides. Those who reconnect with their creative instincts often find themselves reawakening dormant aspects of their identity, rediscovering a joy that had been lost to societal expectations and personal inhibitions. The myth that creativity belongs only to geniuses has further alienated individuals from their creative instincts. Society has long cultivated the idea that only a select few are born with the gift of creation, but this notion is a deception that discourages self-expression. Creativity is not about talent, it is about engagement, risk, and the courage to explore beyond the given. The true artist, thinker, or innovator is not defined by extraordinary ability, but by the refusal to conform. The act of creation is an assertion of selfhood, a rebellion against the passive consumption that modern culture so often encourages. To reclaim creativity is to reclaim the self. It requires an awareness of the ways in which one has been conditioned, an unflinching confrontation with the fear of judgment, and a willingness to create despite uncertainty. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this is impossible without creativity, for to create is to make oneself anew,